Wilson Audio Sasha is the worst speaker I've had in my life. Why is that? First of all, I want to say this. When I make a statement like that, I want you to understand that my journey has progressed to a whole new level. When I had the Sasha 2s, I was in the living room. I didn't even have acoustic treatments. Okay. When I upgraded from the Sasha 2s to what was my next speaker, I think it was the magical S5 MK2. It was a superior performance, much better performance. Then I ended up having the Neolith, the Martin Logan Neoliths, in the same space, same electronics. That's when I understood how inferior the Sasha 2 was in my room at that time. I felt so underwhelmed by the performance of that speaker. It wasn't even funny. I had Vivid Audio G1s, MK1s there. I had the Martin Logan Neoliths. I had Magic OS5s. I had even Sopra 3s. All of those speakers outperform the Sasha 2 at that point in time. So I can tell you with confidence that Sasha DAW is a superior improvement over the Sasha 2. I would not personally touch a Sasha 2. I just wouldn't even touch it. I wouldn't even want it because the DAW is just an amazing beast. It topped everything about the Sasha 2. It showed you how bad the Sasha 2 is. As a matter of fact, I'm going to tell you this. The DAW actually showed you how, you see it two ways, how many improvements Wilson Audio made to the Sasha 2 or how bad of a job they did on the Sasha 2. The DAW was a phenomenal speaker. I would own a DAW till the last day of my life without a question. I do not know about the V. I'm assuming it's a superior speaker, but I do not know yet if the V is the same improvement from the DAW as the DAW was from the Sasha 2. The Sasha 2 was here, the DAW was here. I do not know if that's the same gap in improvement by going from the DAW to the V. Maybe it's only this much. Maybe it's that much. I don't know. I just would not buy a Sasha 2 because I feel like there are many more options that would probably outperform it at this price point. Sabrina X pairings that I would cables that I would use 1000% my cable line authentic audio image, hands down. I have put so many cables from my cable line on Wilson Audio speakers, it's not even funny. When I brought on my cable line authentic audio image from Slovakia, I am the US importer. There are no dealers in the United States. Stop calling around to see if you can get them. No, you cannot. You have to come through me if you want to try authentic audio image cables. These cables have completely outperformed just about any other cable I've had here through Magical speakers and through Wilson Audio speakers. Okay, the sheer clarity of my cable line, the musicality, the way it just connects you to the music. They're not in your face. I've had two members of my ultra hi-fi group replace their cable line, their Shonyata cables and Nordos cables with my cable line. Okay. And every time they try to swap back to other cables, they end up returning back to my cable line. Okay. They're not a lot of money when you consider the brands that these cables easily outperform. And so I am 100% biased with my cable line. Okay, 100%. It's not a lot of money, quote unquote, considering what we normally see with Wilson Audio speakers and magical loudspeakers. Okay. So the only thing is, of course, you can only trust my opinion, and that may not be enough to some of you, but everyone who's ordered cables from me continues to use them. I'm telling you, you'll be shocked to find a better performing cable for the money. What's my take on Avangard loudspeakers? Can they compete with the best? Thank you for reminding me about this system. Avangard speakers with, I think it was Darziel. I want to say it was the Darziel integrated that I heard over at Capital Audio Fest. I want to say this is probably the first time ever in which I like an Avangard speaker. That system, the Avangard system with the integrated that they had, completely outperformed the Stanheim speakers with the expensive 468 Darziel monos. To me, it was a superior experience. I don't think I have ever felt so connected to an Avangard speaker as I did at Capitol Audio Fest. As a matter of fact, that's the first time that I consider bringing an Avangard speaker into my lab. I texted with a few people about it. The general feeling that I got, the feedback that I got from everyone was, be careful because system matching is key, especially with that speaker, because of the high efficiency. Meaning, you can't use a Griffin Apex with a speaker like that. You can't. You got to change that completely. You got to go into a softer amplification. You got to go into something with less wattage, probably more tubes in the mix. No surprise, Darziel sounded good because again, they sound like tubes. That's their sound signature. Okay. And I loved the Avangard setup. I really did like it. Maybe at some point you could see an Avangard loudspeaker. It's just a different type of sound. You have to get used to it. I know some people claim that it makes them run out of the room. It's too much in your face. There's too much energy. There's too much bite, too much top end, fatigue. I did not get that impression. However, I can see why that would be the case if you begin to crank up the volume too loud. I do not know if that's a speaker that you can do that with. It might be that speaker that you have to kind of find the right volume level where you get a perfect balance of all the frequency response, the low registers, the top end, just enough to keep you happy, but not make you run out of the room. So, but I'm not an expert when it comes to horns. I'm speculating here, but maybe one day I decide to become an expert when with horns. The only problem, of course, is the aesthetics, right? A lot of people do not like the way it looks, and it is quite massive. Okay, speakers are really wide, and I don't think their small offerings sound any good. I think you need to be with I think it was the $75,000 model. I can't remember what the model was. I'm not too familiar with the models on this particular brand. But if I were going to do Avangard, I would start at the $75,000 price point. I just don't like the smaller ones. I don't think the smaller ones do anything for me. What is my opinion on the Chord Dave DAC, a brand that has been owned by me? I've never owned their amplifiers. I have never owned their preamplifiers. I've only heard okay things about their preamplifiers and amplifiers. I haven't heard anything great. However, I can't say this. I can't say this is coming from me. This is just general feedback I've received. What I can say about the DAC, the Chord Dave, is it worked quite well as a preamplifier the time I had it. It was a great preamplifier. A lot of detail. The external unit that you can buy, I think it's a CD player slash power supply, I want to say. I don't know. There's something else you can buy for it that enhances the presentation. I keep hearing that it does do an amazing job when it comes to streaming music, when you add this second component. One thing I can say is I felt it a little bright when I had it, probably a little too bright. I needed to kind of figure out a way to balance that top end with the Chord Dave. But overall, it's not a bad piece. I like the look. It's not massive. It's not really huge. Um, I liked it while I had it. Was it one of the best? At that point in time, yes. But after years later, no. I wouldn't say it's been one of my top performing DACs that I've owned, but I do not know. Maybe they do have a new model that came out. Maybe they have made improvements. So remember, this is going back at least 3 years when I had it, 3, 4 years. So it's been a long time. What do you think about large speakers compared to smaller high-end speakers? To me, it seemed like smaller would image better and great soundstage. Also, 1/3 of the sound is the room. Yes, so I agree. The one of the most important thing is the room, no doubt. Without the room, no matter how much more money you dump into your system, the room will negate any efforts you make when it comes to system performance. You can drop $1 million, and if you're playing music outside in the hallway, your system is not going to sound any good, regardless of the speakers you're using, regardless of the electronics, regardless of anything that you use. Okay, it's not going to be any good because the room again will kill your efforts. But I think you have to be careful with buying speakers. Of course, the size of the room dictates what you can get away with as far as the size of the speakers. I am crazy. I'm a madman. I will bring the largest speakers you've seen, of course, big speakers from Magico here, Focal in Wilson Audio, even the Magnapan 20.7s. So I will push boundaries. Okay. I will push boundaries to see how far I can get away with, like how far I can go with big speakers. And I can say to you that, yes, there has to be a balance. Okay. You can't expect great performance from loudspeakers that are massive if you put them in a small room. One huge advantage, of course, of Wilson Audio is the time alignment, where it allows you, you can have a little more freedom with Wilson Audio speakers because of this whole entire time alignment. But that was not the case, for instance, with the Magico M6s. I felt the Magico M6s were too big for my room. And it's the same feeling that I echo when it comes to the Focal Stellas. I had them in here briefly, but I felt they were too big for my room, too clunky, and I felt like they needed a larger sound. They could put out a larger sound, excuse me, but my room, the sidewalls, the boundaries of my room were negating those efforts. So it is important that you take into account the size of the speaker and the size of the room. There has to be a balance. Like, I don't like a speaker that's too close to the walls and too close to the ceiling. I think you need to have at least 1.5 to 2 feet around the speaker at a bare minimum. Ideally 3 feet. But if all you can do is 2 feet around the speaker, then so be it. Okay, your system consists of the Ineos Statement, Brinkmann DAC, preamplifier and monos from Audio Research, the Ref 6 plus 160M, Magico S5 MK2s, Shunyata Sigma cables. What do you think is the weakest link of the system? This is interesting. What is the weakest link of this system? Personal opinion, I will be very blunt and honest. To me, based on what you have already outlined, the weakest link of that system is without a doubt the monos, your 160Ms. I do not believe that the 160Ms were an all-out assault, meaning that they deliver incredible performance. I felt the 160Ms very soft-sounding, lacking balls, excuse me for being blunt. Maybe that was the intent from Audio Research when they, made these, when they manufactured these amplifiers. They felt like, hey, we do not need to create like our best amplification here. It's just a very nice, soft, relaxed tube sound that we're shooting for, and that's what they did. They have no dynamics. I think that you should do something with a lot more grip. I would recommend maybe solid state amplifiers that can control those S5s. I've owned your speakers. They need solid state amplification.